So, guess where I am today? With my trusty sidekick, Jim, who's also my technical and emotional support human for this trip. We are, in case you didn't guess it, in front of Independence Hall on Wednesday, July 1st. As part of the SAR celebration here for the next few days, we decided to go out and we're going to take a ghost tour here in a few minutes. So more about that later. Talk to you later. Bye. Good morning. This is Lee Muncie with the Retired Hillbilly, episode number 6. On a breezy, clearing summer day in the Ohio Valley. It is July 21st, 2026. So, let's take a moment to appreciate this hot, but not quite humid Tuesday morning in the Ohio Valley. The birds are singing, cicadas are humming. In the faint background, I think I hear the interstate buzzing with traffic. It is truthfully a beautiful, God-given morning. I hope you all are enjoying it wherever you are. I'm enjoying it from my front porch. And let's get started. First, the boilerplate. The views expressed on this podcast are only the views of the presenter, mine and only mine. They're not supported, approved, affiliated, or condoned by any other entity. Views are as is. Any dissenting views or of the facts I present, or the format of the facts I present, may be communicated and possibly discussed in any future podcast. I have an email address associated with this podcast. It's retiredhillbilly@gmail.com. And then you can make comments and stuff within the YouTube framework. Our format will be an intro, such as I talked about. The summer is here, and it's a beautiful day, and we should all glory and revel in it as part of God's gift to us. But today we're going to talk about what led up and what were the causes of the American Revolution. It is our semi-quincentennial. Yes, my wife had me practice that. Our 250th anniversary of our federal constitutional republic. You know, it's one of those things that's intrinsic to me and surprises me. It's not internal, intrinsic to other people. But our government for 250 years is a grand experiment. It was the first written constitution, and it can be changed. And a lot of people don't appreciate that framework that we built that emphasizes individual liberty while still having governmental functions. And it is a daily struggle, battle, review of, do we still want to keep it? There are forces out there that do not want democracy. They want control for themselves and their own. There are those that want us to conform to a religious deitism. There are those that want us to be enthralled through products and social media and other things, tie us to them, and where we can't get released from, can't be released from. So let's talk about the American Revolution. As the age of darkness fell, and men came out of plagues and wars and subjugation of a feudal age and the start of a mercantile age. They started to think, and there were great philosophers of the Great Enlightenment, of which our revolution was at the tail end of. What is the nature of man? What is the nature of God? What is the nature of economy? And as survival from the Dark Ages ended, men started to think about these things. Hume and others took thoughts from Greek and Roman times, the writers, Plutarch, Aristotle, Plato, and transformed them into this enlightened age. At the same time, feudalism was fueling empire. The British had a great naval force, which they went out and conquered. Spain went out and conquered. Italy and Germany to a smaller extent. Russia tried to, but they were just so landlocked. Even Portugal was out there building empire. Came to a head between the English and the French in a series of wars. And at the same time that this mercantile feudal empire was coming into being, or in being, there was also the thoughts of religious freedom. A lot of people don't realize that even though there was an England, Scotland, Ireland, and Wales, and that they were conquered by the Norman Saxons in 1066, that Great Britain as a political entity did not exist until 1703, when they signed an agreement between England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, Northern Ireland. And one of those things within the agreement was that they'd all try to be basically Church of England. That caused a migration from Great Britain to other places, primarily colonial North America, those 13 colonies. We hear about the Pilgrims. This is because of that. The Pilgrims left Great Britain because of a tightening lack of economic and religious freedom. A lot of the Scotch Irish that came later to Appalachia left because of economic and religious freedom, which was kind of interesting because later when the revolution did start, they were all in on getting back at the Dancessadach of Great Britain. Those are the non-Picts and within the islands of Great Britain. So, as part of this more modern thinking of the Enlightened Age, the citizens, those inhabitants of colonial North America, especially after the French and Indian War, in which they were promised more land west of the Appalachians, and then told, no, you can't do that because the Indians will get mad at us. And so that was one of the things that rubbed the colonists the wrong way as well. Another thing was Great Britain, being a mercantile feudal state with a king, did not need or want competition of finished goods from the colonists. We had to send the lumber and the sugar cane and the silver and everything else back to Great Britain, where their mercantiles, their businesses would make products and then ship them back to the colonists and not have them be able to have the right to make their own textiles. Black powder, which was needed for the revolution, was in in short supply in the colonies because Great Britain would not allow the colonies to develop those industries themselves. And these colonists thought they were British citizens, that they were a part of citizens of Great Britain with rights, responsibilities, and privileges. So let's talk about that first. Citizen or subject. The fundamental difference lies in who holds ultimate power. Citizens collectively hold sovereignty and possess inalienable rights, while subjects live under the authority of a ruling power, such as a monarch, a king, and are bound by allegiance in exchange for protection. The contrast between these two statuses shapes both governance and personal liberties. Sovereignty and power. Citizens actively participate in their governance. You vote. You run for office. You represent yourselves within collective groups. Subjects owe allegiance and obedience to a monarch. And state that and have little to no role in political decision making. Rights and status. Citizens are generally equal under the law, possessing rights that can't be arbitrarily revoked. Subjects have rights and freedoms granted by the ruler, which are often subject to revocation or limitation by the sovereign. An example of this is after the French and Indian War, Great Britain was bankrupt. They'd spent fortune fighting the French in North America and decided to start taxing the colonists. Talk about that more in a minute. But that also meant that their power was more arbitrary. Pennsylvania was a religious state, Quakers. Eventually that was taken away. Massachusetts had its own legislative body. That was later taken away by the sovereign and the parliament. For citizens, allegiance is tied to constitutional laws and national institutions. For subjects, the relationship is a personal allegiance to a ruling figure. Historically, populations were primarily viewed as subjects of a crown. Their transition from subjects to citizens, such as through the American Revolution, marked a shift in political theory. I talked about the Age of Enlightenment and people, when they came out of survival mode into being able to have the time and resources to think about certain things. Establishing that power stems from the consent of the governed rather than the accident of birth. To explore this historical shift further, you can read things like Social Contract Term Analysis or examine the political theory via Imprimis and other sources. The American Revolution was primarily caused by the British government attempts to control and tighten control over its 13 colonies and tax them without representation following the French and Indian War. Escalating protests and harsh punishments created an irreversible divide, culminating in the revolution and armed conflict. Those catalysts included no taxation without representation. Most of us have heard of that. Britain imposed unpopular measures like the Stamp Act in 1765 and the Townshend Acts to pay off war debts. Colonists fiercely opposed these taxes because they had no members in Parliament to represent them. The Boston Massacre, 1770. British soldiers fired into an angry mob in Boston, killing 5 colonists and fueling further anti-British sentiment. The Boston Tea Party in 1773, in protest of the Tea Act, colonists dumped 342 chests of British tea into Boston Harbor. The Intolerable Acts of 1774 was in retaliation to the Tea Party. Britain passed the Coercive Acts, which closed Boston Harbor, dissolving the Massachusetts Assembly, and forced colonists to house British soldiers and provide for them, feeding them basically. Proclamation of 1763, issued by King George III, banned colonists from settling west of the Appalachian Mountains, angering those who had fought the French and Indian War to gain that land. The Stamp Act of 1765, the first direct tax on all colonists, requiring a stamp on all paper goods, legal documents, and even playing cards. This provoked widespread outrage and the Stamp Act Congress. Because of these, delegates from 12 of the 13 colonies in 1774 met in Philadelphia to coordinate a unified resistance to British colonies. They met in Carpenter's Hall from September 5th to October 26, 1774. Georgia did not attend in response to the punitive Intolerable Acts. 56 delegates coordinated on an economic boycott of British goods and drafted a list of rights. Adopted October 14, 1774, the Declaration of Rights and Grievances were entitled to life, liberty, and property, and denounced taxation without representation. They formed the Continental Association on October 20 of 1774, a sweeping united boycott of British imports and a halt to colonial exports to Britain. Remember, I told them Great Britain would not let the colonists make finished goods. The outcome of this, the Congress agreed to reconvene in May 1775 if the British Crown failed to address their grievances, setting the stage for the Second Continental Congress and armed conflict, which broke out on April 19th, 1775 at Lexington and Concord, where British troops marched to seize colonial weapons and arrest rebel leaders, and armed confrontation ensued, known as the Shot Heard Around the World, marking the beginning of the Revolutionary War. 57 delegates came to Philadelphia and met at Independence Hall, and on July 2nd approved the writings of Thomas Jefferson to formally declare their independence. And from that, we got the American Revolution. This Second Continental Congress approved George Washington as commander-in-chief, a few sub-generals, and tried to set up an economic system. Got to remember, the colonies were broke too, and the states had been harshly dealt with by the Crown in Great Britain up to this point. So that is our lesson for today. A couple weeks ago, I was privileged and proud as can be to be in Philadelphia along with fellow SAR, Sons of the American Revolution compatriots, to celebrate July 4th in Philadelphia. And we were there I was there on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and headed back home on the 5th, and participated in a couple of activities, personal and with the group. Personally, I got to see the United States USS New Jersey and tour it. We took a ghost walk in Philadelphia that night on the 1st. On the 2nd, in 106-degree weather in wool, We participated in, actually, I was on the color guard for a formal reading of the Declaration that was held at Independence Hall Square behind Independence Hall. On the 3rd, they canceled the parade, but we still paraded around Independence Hall, took pictures, drummed, fifed, had a good time. And I got to carry the Kentucky flag in both instances. On Saturday the 4th, I was a tourist most of the day on an unair-conditioned tour bus with breakdowns and such. It was a good visit. It was a good trip. Last year, my wife and son with me, we went to Boston area for Lexington and Concord. And it also was a good experience. I intend on attending a few of these events until Lexington and Concord, and then the 250th for the Battle of Blue Licks, which I'll talk about here in a minute. And that'll complete my Revolutionary War bucket list for travel. Now, about Blue Licks. Blue Licks was one of the last battles fought in the Revolutionary War. It happened like 2 or 3 months after the Battle of Yorktown. Remember, back then, they didn't get the email. It occurred here in Kentucky, about 45 minutes north of what's present-day Lexington. And a colonel from Detroit, a British colonel, took Indian allies, and they were going to raid amongst the settlements in Kentucky. So Lexington, Boonesboro, Harrodsburg, some of the others got raided. Well, members of the Virginia militia, remember, Kentucky was Kentucky County of Virginia at the time, went in chase. And at a place called Blue Licks, the British and their Indian allies got up atop a hill, and the overall commander of the 3 companies basically said, if you're not yellow or a coward, looking at Daniel Boone, who said, don't do this, don't go up a hill fighting, and let's wait for the guys from Lexington to get here. Follow me. They did. 167 militiamen, approximately 62 of them, I think, died, including Israel Boone, Daniel's son. Another son was injured, and they actually court-martialed Daniel Boone, of which he got acquitted because he was right. But we come together with reenactors and the State Park Service and my chapter of the Sons of the American Revolution, the Governor Isaac Shelby chapter, of which I'm the current president of that chapter, hold a commemoration. This year it's going to be Saturday, August 15th. It's going to be at the Blue Licks Resort Park, starting at 10 a.m. We'll ring a bell, call out the names, have some speeches, fire some black powder weapons, carry flags, and we invite you to join us for this commemoration. Usually there are descendants of the people who fought in the battle there, and the Friends of Blue Licks make sure that you're hydrated and that you have a seat, because it's August, folks, in the Ohio Valley. So like I said, if you get a chance, join us. I'll probably be putting together some shorts. I did shorts, if you've not seen them, under the Retired Hillbilly name on on YouTube. 2 or 3 minute things, maybe 10-minute tops, from beginning to end. So if you get a chance, take a look at those. Let's see what else. So I don't know if you all noticed, but America is celebrating its 250th birthday, the semi-quincentennial. Yes, I practiced that. And with that, there are events all around us up to the end of the year where you can relive, think upon, and celebrate this grand experiment known as the United States of America. And it's important that youngsters and their parents and their grandparents and uncles and aunts, friends, enemies, all realize the struggle and the sacrifice that was made to make this republic. Independence Hall was not only the place where we declared independence, it was also where we argued out and developed our current Constitution after the Articles of Confederation just didn't get the job done. That was compromise. There's a reason why we have the Electoral College. There's a reason why we have a Senate and a House. A reason why we have a strong chief executive in the presidential branch and have a Supreme Court that helps hear arguments of the constitutionality of the actions of the others. It is a balancing act. Big states versus small states. Rich states versus poor states. Compromises are the way we have a government that is functioning after 250 years. Now, let's talk about some other stuff. I think Spider-Man comes out this coming week. Stewart Doesn't Save the Universe, an offshoot of Big Bang Theory. The first official trailer for Avengers Doomsday came out. And it's kind of cool in that Cyclops and other Marvel characters that weren't in the Marvel Universe before, along with Spider-Man, are in the movie. You see Cyclops fighting at the Xavier Mansion. You see Charles Xavier. You see Remy LeBeau. And then you see Magneto and a few others. You see the Fantastic Four in the Marvel Universe, which I think is just way cool. And then even on the comics front, my beloved Legion of Superheroes comes back in the comic book form in September. One of my favorite series ever growing up. I continue to try to be a better person, a better man, father, husband. I'm trying to be a better Christian. It's a hard way. It's a hard road. But I feel lighter now being in my church that I've chosen and they've accepted me. So again, if you have any questions, send me an email. If you have any comments, comment. If you have any requests for knowledge on learning on certain subjects, let me know. I know on one of the shorts, I went to the Reading Market in Philadelphia and mentioned after going to this Chinese place that we were going to get some ice cream. And someone asked me, what kind of ice cream did I get? And I told them chocolate. So, that kind of interaction is kind of cool. Again, this is Lee Muncie with Retired Hillbilly, podcast number 6 on July 21st, 2026. Wishing you a good day, Godspeed, safe journeys, try to learn a little bit, and have some fun.
Here you are, in the most important, sacred, holy, whatever word you want to use, room in the entire country. This is called the Assembly Room. And it's so important. There's not 5, 6 feet where you are right now, but the Declaration and the Constitution are introduced, argued out, debated out, but eventually approved. The room is set up, as I believe it was, in May 1787, at the Constitutional Convention. Northern states, northern side, Middle-Atlantic states in the center, southern states on the southern side of the story. Why do we call this place Independence Hall?
Night, you could see the Crescent Hill fireworks display, and they were shooting off fireworks at the west end too. There were a bunch of people who were just shooting off the the civilian stuff. So I mean, this kind of reminds me of that, except these are cities.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed. But it looks like some bad weather's coming in too.
Makes me wonder if some of them started their displays early.
Well, usually they get right when it gets dark, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Wow, you look even up the river more. You know, it's almost horizon wide, isn't it? Darn New Jersey. So it is approximately 9:10 in the morning on Friday, July 3rd. I am at Independence Hall Square behind Independence Hall. They have canceled the parade because of the heat. It's supposed to get to about 104 today. It's, what was it, 88? Already 88 degrees. So I jokingly made the suggestion yesterday that because the parade route was 2.4, then 1.2, that we just stand here and people pass us by and we wave. I didn't know they were going to take the suggestion, but it looks like they did. So our color guard will gather, we'll carry our flags, we'll march around a bit, we'll take pictures for people and answer questions. It's still going to be a beautiful, beautiful day here as we celebrate the semi-quincentennial, yes Tracy, I said it right, of American independence. More later.
Here you are, in the most important, sacred, holy, whatever word you want to use, room in the entire country. This is called the assembly room. And it's so important. There's not 5-6 feet where you are right now, but the Declaration and the Constitution are introduced, argued about, debated out, but eventually approved. The room is set up as I believe it was in May 1787, at the Constitutional Convention, northern states, northern side, Middle Atlantic states in the center, southern states on the southern side of the story. Why do we call this place Independence Hall?
Well, here I am outside the gate of Travelers Rest, the home of the 1st and 5th governors of Kentucky, Isaac Shelby. We, as SAR, are coming together for a wreath laying ceremony with color guard and such, which hopefully I'll be a part of. However, it's 9 o'clock and the gate is still locked, so more to come later. Spotty thunder showers, 90 degrees, typical summertime fun for sons of the American Revolution. Here we are at the Governor Isaac Shelby burial site for a wreath laying in commemoration of the 250th anniversary of his death in the United States of America. So, various chapters from SAR are here, and I'll be part of the color guard here in a few minutes. We have people prepping for it. We have a decent sized crowd and a decent sized contingent. It's going to be hot and muggy, so more later. Bye. Good evening. Here we are at Oxmore Farms. We're hoping that the thunder and lightning to the south of us dissipates or moves on. About 9:30 tonight, they're going to be showing the Patriot on an inflatable screen here. We are here as SAR to help promote the organization, be a color guard for the Pledge of Allegiance, and if the mood strikes, we may fire a few black powder weapons. We're always unpredictable that way. So with me is our media person, Marty. I won't give your last name in case there's, people want to chase you down. And this is Lee Muncie with the Retired Hillbilly podcast. I'll talk to you more later.